Today is day 1 of culinary school in Italy. And if you're wondering what it's like, it's full of coffee breaks and lots of wine and cheese. Today, we started out by tasting lots of different olive oils. Since extra virgin olive oil is at the heart of Italian cooking, we learned about good kinds like from the DOP and what crappy olive oil tastes like. Next, we tasted a ton of different cheeses. We tasted cheese from the Grana family, which is hard cheese, as well as pasta filata, which is string cheese, and not the kind of string cheese we eat in America. I love this burrino, which is cheese stuffed with butter. We finished off the cheese section with some wine and then moved on to balsamic vinegar. We learned that good balsamic vinegar is made with grapes and then reduced and aged in a barrel. Plus, there are different amount of times that the balsamic vinegar can be aged. Some producers are ethical about this, while others are a little sketchy, so we learned the difference between all of these. We finished with cheese dishes and some dessert wine. It's day 2 of culinary school in Italy. Today was more learning about the base of Italian cooking. First, we made an infused garlic oil because Italians generally don't cook with raw garlic. Up next was a bolognese sauce. This used pork, beef, and some simple tomato sauce. And then we got to see a cuttlefish, which for some reason we call squid, even though that's not right. Next, we made some rigatoni with porcini mushrooms. Each ingredient, while it's simple, adds so much flavor, which is part of the reasons the Italians make such good food. We were focusing on learning technique in this dish. Moving along, we made some anchovy garlic paste, and then a pasta dish called profumo di mare. This dish uses lemons, olives, and trofie pasta. It was one of my favorites for sure. Then we made puttanesca, which is a dish that was developed by fishermen because all of the ingredients are shelf-stable. We finished the day with a cooking test making scallopini, some wine, and a wok. Welcome to day 3 of culinary school, where we focused all on pasta. First, we started by making some ossobuco, which is traditionally made with beef. Then we moved on to demoing lots of different pastas. Some of the pastas were made using a dough from northern Italy, which included eggs, while our southern Italian dough had no eggs. We made many different types of pasta, including cavatelli, fusilli, pappardelle, farfalle, and many others. Plus, we got to learn how to make a stuffing that could go inside ravioli or other stuffed pasta. Something that's very important when you're cooking pasta is making sure that you're only going until it's al dente. Italians take this very seriously. After we watched all of the pastas being made, we got to try it ourselves. We started out with forarina, which is an egg yolk stuffed ravioli. Then we moved on to some other shapes and finally finished with a fresh spinach pasta, and that's how we ended the day. Welcome to day 4 of culinary school in Italy, aka bread day. The day before, we made a biga, which is basically like a pre-fermented dough like sourdough. Then we moved on to a high hydration focaccia, our base dough for specialty rolls, which can be made a million different ways. We made the standard base recipe, and then we added some pepperoncini oil for a different take on these specialty rolls. We proofed and baked the rolls in between all of the different doughs, and then we moved on to some ciabatta. Of course, we had a snack with some cheese and guanciale, and then went on to make some zucchini squash blossoms. These were filled with a pasta stuffing that we made a couple days earlier, then we fried those up and demoed some risotto and ossobuco for lunch. Back to our focaccia bread, this one had tomatoes on it, which was delicious, and then we also made some personal focaccias. We ended the day by making some Neapolitan-style dough, and then of course went out for pizza afterwards. Welcome to day 5 of culinary school in Italy. Today was all about creative cuisine. We first learned how to cut swordfish, and then we breaded and cooked that in pistachios. We also made an awesome side dish called caponata, and it was a sweet and sour dish. It paired perfectly with the swordfish. The next dish Chef demoed was a black noodles with seafood. He said if you really want to impress somebody, this is the dish to pull out. Next, we moved along to prepping some octopus. We made octopus sliders, which were so good. There was an abundance of broccoli in the kitchen today, so we made some broccoli soup. Even though we've made too many pasta dishes to keep track of, they keep getting more and more creative. This one was filled with candied tomatoes and mussels. Along the way, we've also been learning what pastas pair well with what types of sauces. The last part of the day was spent reheating our focaccia with some toppings. It's classic to do this to finish off the entire bread. Day 6 of culinary school was an awesome one. We went to the farmer's market to grab some veg. We were on a mission to find vegetables for a side dish and pasta dish that we'll have to make tomorrow. For lunch today, Chef demoed a frita pizza, which is basically a fried pizza dough and then add all the delicious cheese on top. I was super surprised when we also made a dessert pizza. Apparently this isn't a faux pas in Italy. Chef also demoed some branzino, and we ate this along with some cauliflower medallions and red pepper sauce. Then, for the most fun part of the day, we had a pizza party to end the night. We used the Neapolitan-style dough that we made a couple days ago, and they showed us the proper way to make a pizza in a wood-fired oven. Once it comes out of the oven, you use 3 fingers to test that your dough has been properly baked. After this, we moved on to making our own individual pizzas. I made mine with pizza cheese and andouille sausage. It's classic to drink beers with pizza in Italy, so that's exactly how we ended the night. Day 7 of culinary school in Italy was filled with rainbows and, of course, delicious food. The first dish of the day was aglio olio. Then we peeked at our pork tenderloin, which has been marinating in red wine. We got to eat this raw with some cured egg yolks and salt on top. Then we moved on to making different components for an antipasto. We first made semola medallions, then fried up some shrimp. We also learned how to make a shrimp demi and then put the whole appetizer together. Next, we moved on to whole wheat pappardelle pasta topped with truffle. The sauce came from a bone broth, which was so light and delicious. We couldn't finish the day without some dessert, so we learned how to make the classic tiramisu. Next, we moved on to prepping some fish. We had to learn how to descale and also how to cut the fish. If you're lucky, you'll find some roe in your fish, and you can use this to cure and eat later. We finished the night with some pollo al romano, which is polenta and baked chicken. Day 8 of culinary school in southern Italy was a big one. We first learned the base recipe of how to make risotto al parmigiano. The great thing about these demos is they teach us all the technique and then we get to make it our own. This one was topped with black truffles. Up next, we had to use the veggies that we bought at the farmer's market to make our own dish. I first cooked a leek and mushroom pasta along with some orata fish, and then for my side dish, I made a roasted veggie salad, topped with some bitter greens. It was delicious, if I do say so myself. We got to drink some wine as a celebration to finishing our first dishes. We finished the night with some dinner, which was barbecuing the red wine marinated pork tenderloin. Welcome to day 9 of culinary school in Italy. We first learned how to clean anchovies. Next, Chef demoed some carbonara for us. This is a dish that uses both egg yolks and guanciale. This dish is super rich, but obviously very delicious. After the demo, we also had to make our own plate of carbonara. After seeing this dish twice today, hopefully we've mastered it. Next, we moved on to making some aglio olio, which is a garlic-based dish. Over the past few days, we've been salt curing this bacala fish. Today, we finally cooked it up. Then we moved on to prepping some dishes for an antipasto. This was a tartare with crispy fish skin, and it was also accompanied by some hazelnut prawns. We finished class with some orecchiette with broccoli rabe and sausage, along with some orange mascarpone mousse. This was also topped with some delicious caramelized white chocolate crumbles. We ended the night with dinner prep. Welcome to day 10 of culinary school in Italy. They first made us some delicious lunch of shrimp risotto, along with bacala fish and black polenta. Then we moved on to our mystery box challenge. We had to cook 2 dishes only using tomatoes, mussels, and guanciale. We started out by making our own pasta dough and then transformed those into 2 shapes. We got cooking. I ended up making some cavatelli with spicy tomato sauce and guanciale, along with mussels and tomato pappardelle. It was fun testing our cooking skills. Welcome to day 11 of culinary school in Italy, aka pastry day. If you didn't know, making pastries is all about making different components and seeing how they come together. We started off the day with some strawberry coulis and some sponge cake. So we moved along to some other essentials such as pâte à bâton, crème anglaise, and whipped cream. We also did a quick science experiment showing why you shouldn't mix eggs and sugar ahead of time. Finally, after we had all of our components made, we started putting everything together. Sponge cakes were filled with a ricotta cheesecake filling. Then next we moved on to making strawberry spumoni and some pie crust. Overall, pastry day taught us the importance of staying on one task and really focusing on one item at a time. After we were done with all of our demos, we got to try our hand at making our own pie crust as well as individual sized tiramisu. Welcome to Culinary School in Italy, Charcuterie Week edition. We learned how to cure lots of different pig products, but before we could get to that point, we first had to learn how to break down a whole pig. Now, the first lesson I learned was that chefs care so much about the animal and how it was treated, and how to have respect for it when using it in our dishes. Today, we learned how to cut down the whole pig and how to actually use every single part of the pig. Along the way, we got to taste how different items have been cured and what part of the pig they were associated with. Once they demoed one half of the pig, we got to try our hands at breaking down the other half. It was a long day, but it was so cool to see all of the different cuts of meat and what we were going to use them for throughout the week. At the end of the day, we began curing our prosciutto as well as making some andouille sausage. Then we ended the night with some truffle and peperoncino porchetta. Welcome to day 2 of charcuterie week while going to culinary school in Italy. We started off the day by checking our curing meats from the day before to make sure everything is okay. Today was all about learning how to make different types of cured sausages, so we learned the proper technique for this, and then of course how to flavor different sausages depending on the flavor that we want, or the type of meat it is. Of course, we also talked about safety and how to make sure all of our products were safe for people to eat. Along the way, we also got some Pig Week snacks and a great view from the pastry lab. We made some more andouille sausage today, along with some soppressata. Then at the end of the day, we each took a different type of cured sausage and made our own. This one was a truffle variety. Welcome back to another day of culinary school in Italy. Day 3 of Pig Week continues, starting out with some delicious breakfast that was made from the head juice and the bone juice of the pig. I wasn't lying yesterday when I told you we used literally everything from that animal. Next, we moved on to making a pig demi. This is a glaze that you can use on top of so many dishes. Then we made some tomato sauce to go along with tripa, which is beef stomach lining. Chef then did a play off of canned tuna with yet another cut of pig. Then we moved along to tasting different fat and salt percentages within the meat. We took a quick break to go smoke our bacon. Fun fact, you can actually use limoncello to wash off the salt from curing. After this, we had to put all of our knowledge to the test and make our own variety of sausages with whatever flavors we wanted to use. I kept it simple and made a peperoncino sausage. Welcome to day 15 of culinary school in Italy, and sadly our last day of charcuterie week. We've had a lot of projects along the way, so today we finished everything off. We washed off the salt for some of the items that had been curing, as well as finished up some of our other products that needed to dry. We had a quick snack break to try the bacon that we made yesterday. And then we hung all of our cured meat products so that way they could be smoked. These items need lots of time, so we'll come back soon to see how they turned out. To finish off the week, we also learned how to make some mortadella, which is a classic that everyone loves. It was honestly so eye-opening seeing how easy it was to make some of these products at home. After the mortadella had been stuffed, we sous vide it and then it was ready to go. We finished up the day by making some bratwurst, and then for dinner we got to try our delicious sausage from the other day. Welcome to day 16 and 17 of culinary school, which was the start of menu execution week. We were tasked with making a 5-course meal from the northern part of Italy, along with table breads, wine pairings, and a cute table decor setting. Before we could do that though, we had to start with some wine tasting. We learned how Italy classifies their wine, why air is important to add to wine, and a few classic pairing combinations. We then headed back into the kitchen for a demo. Since many of our menu items were a trise, which means 3 things on a plate, Chef wanted to make sure we understood what we needed to do. Today, the dishes that were demoed, one was an octopus plate and then another was a beef trise. Both of these gave us so many ideas for the menu that we had to create. We spent the last part of the day creating our Northern Italy-inspired menu, and then we also wrote out a prep list since tomorrow we'll be in the kitchen cooking and we needed to stay organized. Welcome back to day 18 and 19 of culinary school in Italy. Menu execution week continues and we got in the kitchen to start prepping things for our 5-course Northern Italian style meal. On top of all the prep work we had to do, we also were tasked with making lunch for everyone. We made some frittatas and then quickly got back to work. I was part of the smaller dessert team, so we spent most of our day working on the components for our dessert. We started off with the strawberry coulis, and then we moved on to prepping all of our semi-Fredos as well as some chocolate coating around them. We made 3 different types of semi-Fredos, including a vanilla, hazelnut, and a strawberry one. We also made some of our garnishes, including this white caramelized chocolate, which has been a favorite of mine. I finished the day by helping my teammates make some cuttlefish specialty rolls. Day 20 of culinary school in Italy was a busy one. Today we finished our menu execution week and finally presented our 5-course dish inspired by Northern Italy to everyone. We made 3 types of bread, including focaccia, ciabatta, and cuttlefish ink specialty rolls. Our antipasta was tartare, octopus, and prawns. Risotto, a classic northern dish, was of course required. This one was porcini flavor. We also showed off our skills by making beef 3 ways and then carrots 3 different ways. This meal was so fun to make, yet definitely a little bit challenging for us all. We ended the day with our dessert, which was the 3 different types of semi-Fredos. Overall, I was super happy with how our dish turned out and so proud of our team. Welcome to day 21 of culinary school in Italy. I knew it was going to be a good one because we started out by visiting a winery. We have sommelier training coming up, so we needed to get a base knowledge for how these wines were produced. On top of that, we also get to try various wines and their olive oil selection, since many wineries also produce olives. This week also started mixology lessons, so after our winery, we headed straight into that. Since syrups are used in so many cocktails, we started out by first making different flavored syrups. My personal favorites were the lemon and pepperoncino syrups. Then we made some fat-washed bourbon using pig's fat. And of course, we had to try smoking some bourbon as well. All of these items, including the Bloody Mary mix that we also made, are going to be used in tomorrow's cocktail lesson, where we're learning how to make all of the classic cocktails. Welcome to day 22 of culinary school in Italy. Today started our conserves week. Italians hate wasting food, and they also make the most out of everything that they're given. So today we learned processes for canning, jarring, and preserving food. First up, we filleted salmon, and we used this to make cured salmon, salmon bacon, and salmon jerky. We also used some of the produce that's in season to make candied oranges, orange marmalade, as well as some fried artichokes. After some hands-on learning in the kitchen, we moved to mixology. This lesson started by learning the 4 basic cocktail mixing techniques. The first one was build up, which is building your cocktail in the glass. Next, we had stirring, which is used for classic drinks like martinis. And finally, rolling, which helps incorporate air without bubbles, and the classic shaking. Not only did we taste so many delicious cocktails, but we also learned how to pair flavors together. Welcome back to day 23 of culinary school in Italy, continuing our conserves week. With all of the great produce we had available in the kitchen, we had lots of projects to work on today, including some balsamic spring onions, some spicy eggplant, and orange marmalade. Not only were we able to see how all of these items were made, but we also got to see how to use them in dishes during future lunches and dinners. Today, we also broke down a duck, which will be used for other conserved things tomorrow. Moving on to our mixology class, we learned today how to pair food with cocktails. We paired this dry acidic martini with some oily fish to help balance everything out. All of this training has been for our cocktail competition that we also have to pair with pizza and certain toppings that we'll be able to choose from. Welcome back to Conserves Week, aka day 24 and 25 of culinary school in Italy. We started out by making candied oranges, which can be used on lots of different dishes. Then we made bomba, which is a spicy mixture that we put on top of things like rubolita. We of course had to stop for a midday snack, so we tried the stuffed pepperoncini. We made a couple different types of bacon during this course, and today we tried duck bacon. With the other cuts of duck, we also made some duck prosciutto. Another way to conserve food is through drying things, so we made this magic dried pasta spice. And then of course learned a dish to make with it, and then we had to replicate this dish all on our own after the demo. This week also marked the end of mixology week, so we ended the whole entire program by making our own cocktails, as well as figuring out what kind of pizza to pair with the cocktail. We had a secret list of toppings that we had to choose from. We got 30 seconds to see them, and then we had to present our cocktail to the class along with our pizza pairing. Welcome to day 26 of culinary school in Italy. Today, we got to focus on some really cool creative cuisine techniques, starting out with this natural food coloring by extracting chlorophyll from parsley. The food coloring can then be used to dye breads, pastas, or really whatever you'd like. Next, we made some mantovane bread, which is a bread that's swirled with black and white dough. They look really cool when they're all baked up. Today, we also got to learn about monkfish, which is a new thing for me. It turns out that most of the meat is on the tail, and it tastes really delicious when cooked up. We got to have a unique tasting dish from it. After working with some baby squid and some soulfish, we moved on to our magic pasta, which we had made before, but now today we were getting tested on it. We watched Chef demo it one last time, and then we had to cook it up for ourselves. After that, we finished the day off by fabricating lots and lots of quail. Welcome back to day 27 of culinary school in Italy. Today was another day of creative cuisine, which means we started out first with some cacciatora, which was made with rabbit. Then we moved on to a really cool dish of linguine with shrimp, but the shrimp was made two ways. We had both a raw shrimp and a cooked shrimp component to the linguine. This next dish was angel hair pasta with pea puree, sole fish, and brown butter. It was so amazing, and the flavor combinations were on point. Next, we cooked up the monkfish from yesterday. This was a creative dish. It had potatoes and lots of different vegetables. It was full of flavor. Then we tasted a mackerel salad before going up to help with a prawns dish. This was one that had some brandy in it. Finally, we ended the day by going to a winery and tasting lots of delicious wines and, of course, eating some good food. Day 28 of culinary school in Italy started out by making some stuffing for our quail. These were the quail that we cut up yesterday, and then today we learned how to stuff them and then also the correct baking temperature and times. Quail is a new protein for me, so this was super exciting to see. Next, we made this shortbread dough that can be used to make things like crackers or for other little snacks for aperitivo. Similarly, we also made some flex dough, and this is a little bit different because it's super airy. We used it not only to wrap some salmon, but you can also use it by spreading it thin and making tuiles for decoration. This was another day of learning lots of base techniques and recipes so that way we can use them in future upcoming dishes. After we finished wrapping the salmon, we moved on to yet another sommelier lesson, and this time we learned about all of the different sensory tastes that come when you drink wine with certain food pairings. This was a super eye-opening lesson for me. Day 29 of culinary school in Italy started out with some steak and eggs for breakfast. And this wasn't your normal steak, it was horse, which is pretty normal to eat in Italy. Next, we were taught how to make a traditional dish called zuppa di pesci, which is a fish soup. It has lots of different seafood in it, and it all cooks at different times, which makes it a little challenging. Next, we have a pasta party coming up, so today all of us prepped our handmade pasta using different types of dough as well as different types of shapes. They all turned out very beautifully, and they're set and ready to go for our pasta party tomorrow. Finally, we ended the day by checking out yet another winery. Each winery tour has taught us a new little bit of information as well as allowed us to try delicious types of wine. Welcome to day 30 of culinary school in Italy. Today we had a pasta party, which was just as fun as it sounds. Everyone in our class got to make a different shape of pasta using homemade dough of their choice. We had the choice of both southern or northern dough, and then we got to prep our dish from scratch. Each person chose a dish using the ingredients that they preferred. My dish was orecchiette with broccoli rabe and sausage. Once we had all of our ingredients prepped and ready to go, we went into the kitchen and then got to cook everything up. At the end of the day, we each got to try everybody's dish and see which ones we liked. Everyone had so much creativity and lots of different fun and delicious dishes to taste. And it wouldn't be a pasta party if there also wasn't pasta for dessert, so we finished the day by making some chocolate stuffed raviolis. They were really cute and delicious. Welcome to day 31 of culinary school in Italy. Today started gelato week, which means we had to taste test some gelato before making our own. We did a really cool challenge where we went to 3 different gelaterias. We tried their various flavors to rank and see how good they were. According to our chef, in order to evaluate how good their gelato is, we should try 2 flavors, the fior di latte and a nut-based flavor. After trying all of the flavors, we also got to see the gelato machinery, which uses a special machine and something that's different from ice cream. We also learned how some stores use more natural products while others used more preservative and canned ingredients. When we got back, we also got to learn even more about the products that went into our homemade gelato and, of course, taste test some hazelnut gelato. We ended the day with a sommelier lesson, smelling different aromas that are in wine to see how well we could identify these different smells. Welcome back to day 31 and 32 of culinary school in Italy. Today we're continuing gelato week by learning how to make our own master recipe. If you didn't know, gelato is a lot of math because you have to balance all of the ingredients and make sure that your fats, sugars, lean milk solids, and all the other ingredients align. After learning how to balance gelato, we all got to fine-tune our own recipes. I started working on a red wine reduction gelato with a chocolate base, and there were lots of other delicious flavors from my classmates. Each of us took turns cooking, chilling, and then gelling our gelato in the machine. And without a doubt, the best part of Gelato Week was tasting over 20 different types of gelato and figuring out which flavors were a favorite. Similar to the gelato shops that you see with the big glass windows, those are called vitrinas, we also had one that we kept in school and we got to eat gelato out of it all week long. Day 34 of culinary school in Italy was all about traditional Italian pastries. We started out by making baba, which are rum-soaked cakes that are decorated optionally with some cream and fruit. Then we moved on to cudoraci, which are an Italian cookies specifically from the region from Calabria. They're normally eaten during Easter time and they're filled with hard-boiled eggs. After they're decorated, they're beautiful and delicious to eat. Today was so fun to see all of the hard work and effort that are put into these pastries, as well as learn a little bit about the history. Now, we couldn't move from today without making some classic cannolis. These are from the Sicily region. It was amazing to see how delicious these tasted when the cannoli shells were fried and filled right in front of our eyes. We ended the day by making some colomba dough, and this is used for a bread that's traditionally eaten around Easter. They bake up super pretty, and I can't wait for you to see them tomorrow. Welcome back to day 35 of culinary school in Italy, continuing our classic Italian pastries. We started off the day by making some fraguni, which is a dough that's filled with a ricotta and salami mixture. This recipe is from the region of Calabria where I'm currently studying, so it was super fun to make. Conserves is really big in the Italian culture, and this recipe featured lots of dried figs and candied fruit. It was really pretty to look at as well. Then we worked with chocolate a little bit and made these eggs that actually looked like real eggs, but they were chocolate. We baked up our colomba dough and also made panettone. They actually hang to dry. As all of the pastries were finishing, we placed them on a buffet table to admire all of the hard work from the past couple days. After molding some marzipan for the final touches, we finished the day off with a sommelier lesson by savoring some champagne and also performing a blind taste test with different wines. Welcome to day 36 of culinary school in Italy, all about bread. Bread is a super important part of the Italian culture, so naturally it was important for us to learn how to make it. Today we learned lots of different techniques for making bread, as well as creative ways to make bread in terracotta pots, in different shapes, and in different loaves. Baking not only requires a lot of science, but also a lot of patience and care for the craft. On top of learning the proper ways to make dough, we also had to learn how to manage the proper times and temperatures of our proofer and our ovens. And even along the way, there were a couple missteps, but we learned from our mistakes, and I think it helped us learn how to properly manage these breads in the future. We ended the day by decorating our focaccia as well as baking off all of our breads, and then we got to enjoy some pizza and a big glass of wine. Welcome to day 37 and 38 of culinary school in Italy. This week we focused on breads and pizzas, so naturally today we made lots of bread, starting with these really cool decorative loaves. We made both a big bread loaf as well as smaller rolls. Now to make these, we actually dyed the dough with beetroot as well as spinach to make the beautiful colors. Once we were done decorating those, we moved on to other popular types of bread in Italy, like these grissini, which are basically like breadsticks, as well as taralli. These were a classic for me. I ate these almost every day while I was in Italy, and some ciabatta. Then we moved on to a pizza demo. Chef wanted to show us some of his gourmet pizzas that were a little bit out of the ordinary and used some really unique ingredients. Then we had to make our own pizza with our unique ingredients of our choice, and I ended up making a spicy pizza that was so delicious. Welcome back to day 39 of culinary school in Italy. We're continuing our bread week today with a guest speaker who came in and talked to us about different types of flour, such as whole wheat and Manitoba flour, and how these can be incorporated into various bread recipes. Along the way, we made new bread recipes that were unique to these types of flour, as well as some classic recipes like focaccia, but this one incorporated some potato into the recipe. Of course, along the way, we had to taste test what we were making with some snacks, and then we jumped right back into even more bread recipes. Certain types of dough require different kinds of shaping, so we learned about that as well as how to add seeds and toppings to make the bread both beautiful and even more delicious. By the end of the class, we had a whole bread buffet to try and taste test, and then we ended the day by making a very special birthday cake for one of the chefs who had a birthday today. Day 40 of culinary school in Italy was a unique one. Today, we got to visit a bee farm that not only had bees on the property, but also had tons of delicious citrus. Part of Italian cooking is knowing where your ingredients come from and really caring about your products, and that's exactly what we were able to learn today. We got to taste lots of different types of honeys, as well as actually visit the bees and be around their colonies. It was a super unique experience to be so up close and personal with the honey and the bees. After our little visit with the bees, we got to taste some of the products with cheese and bread. Finally, we ended our day with a coffee lesson, which is another staple in the Italian culture. Day 41 and 42 of culinary school in Italy consisted of our second menu execution challenge. Our team was tasked with creating a 7-course meal, so that meant we had a lot to prep. I specifically got to work on our dessert, which was a treat, as well as help with different projects like our intermezzo, which is a course that you serve in between if you're really stuck in the kitchen and need some time to stall. These days were filled with lots of hard work in the kitchen, prepping and making sure everything was ready to go for our final menu execution day. I can't wait to share more about this. Welcome back to day 43 and 44 of culinary school in Italy. We're continuing our menu execution where we had to make a 7-course menu along with different breads, a cocktail to pair, and a coffee service. Here's everything we made for our menu execution, which took us days to prep. The bocconcino was a bite with shrimp mousse. Our entree was a meatball with speck and broth. Next, our antipasto was a treat with seafood. And then for our primo, we did 3 different types of pasta as well as risotto. Our intermezzo was a short course that was a tartine with some ricotta mousse. This is a quick bite that's served after the primo. And then we moved on to our secondo, which was lamb, veal shank, and rabbit. And finally, a dessert treat, which consisted of a donut, cannoli, and fudge bite. Day 45 of culinary school in Italy was a visit to a coffee factory. This was so cool since coffee is such an important part of Italian culture. We learned how they sourced the beans as well as how they roasted and shipped out the product. We also learned about the different types of beans used in coffee and how a blend can affect the final taste. Then at night, we jumped into sommelier training. Tonight, we learned the different wine tasting terminology to use and how you would actually describe what a glass of wine tastes and look like. After learning how to properly open a bottle of wine, we did some more taste tests and then ended the night by savoring some Prosecco. It's day 46 of culinary school in Italy, and today marks the start of Cheese Week. With Cheese Week, we had to start by first doing a taste test. There's all different types of cheese, including hard cheese, creamy cheese, and cheeses that have additional flavors in them, and they all have different profiles we have to learn. We learned how you can set truffles next to cheese, and it will actually take on the flavor of the truffle, as well as so many other helpful tips with tasting cheese. To end the day, we jumped back into sommelier training. Today was all about learning how to pair food with wine, so we did taste tests with different types of wine. We also examined more glasses of wine and described them using our wine terminology we learned yesterday. And then we learned how to properly open a bottle of sparkling wine. It's day 47 of culinary school in Italy, and we're learning how to make cheese today. The process is pretty simple. It starts by adding rennet to some milk. Then you allow the curds to form, and then you cut them, depending on the type of cheese, into a large or small cut. Then you allow the curds to sink into the whey, and from here we break them up and then scoop them into a cheese basket in order to form the final shape of the cheese. We made lots of different flavors and types of cheese today, and yet they all followed relatively the same process from start to end. After cheese making, we finished up our sommelier training with a dinner. We paired different types of wine with a fancy multiple course dinner in order to help us really train our palates and see what types of dishes go with what types of wine. It was the perfect way to end our sommelier training. Welcome back to day 48 of culinary school in Italy. Today, we visited a cheese production center where they taught us how to make mozzarella. It was super interesting watching somebody who really knows their craft make a large batch of mozzarella cheese. We had to get there super early in the morning so that way we could watch their process from start to end. They started out by making ricotta, which is actually a byproduct of cheese making. We also got to taste different cheeses along the way, and then finally we got to the good part, making mozzarella. This is a skill that definitely takes a lot of practice in order to get perfectly shaped mozzarella balls. They also did a really cool design where they braided the cheese, which look how fast he does it. It's so amazing. And it's awesome to watch these skilled workers and all the time that they've put into learning their craft. Finally, we ended the day by salting the cheese that we made in class the day before. Welcome back to day 49 of culinary school in Italy. We started out today by making some homemade butter. And as if that wasn't impressive enough, we had to put a spin on it to make it super Italian by adding lots and lots of black truffle. We were also able to make buttermilk from this product, which is a byproduct of making butter. Then we moved on to making some specialty cheeses. Today we added different kinds of flavorings to enhance the cheese. And we even made some cheese dusted with pepperoncino powder, which made it super pretty. Of course, we can't leave Cheese Week without having lots of cheese snacks, so we made a fun snack today in order to test all of the cheese we've been making. Welcome back to day 50 of culinary school in Italy. Today, we learned how to make a very iconic Italian cheese, mozzarella. Mozzarella is not only delicious, but it takes some practice in order to shape perfectly round balls. Not only were we able to demo this, but we also got to do some hands-on instruction to try to learn this for ourselves. From the same process as mozzarella cheese, you can also make different cheeses like provola as well as stracciatella, and stracciatella is actually the mixture that goes inside of burrata. Burrata is a super expensive cheese in the United States, so I was really excited to learn how to make this, and I can't wait to try it for myself at home. And then we smoked some of our cheese that we made earlier in the week to give it a unique and delicious flavor. Welcome to day 51 through 54 of culinary school in Italy. Today is a sad day because it ends my 3-month-long journey of learning how to cook Italian food in southern Italy. If you've been following my journey from the beginning, it's been an amazing ride, and we got to finish off our entire culinary school journey by making a big buffet for everyone in the class. We each had different projects we were working on and different courses that we were in charge of. It was so fun getting to work in the kitchen one last time and preparing this special meal for everyone in our class. As a way to say goodbye to each other, we got to enjoy drinking cocktails and eating all of the amazing food that everyone had made over the past couple days. It was really eye-opening to see how much we had learned these past 3 months and just how well we were able to cook and enjoy authentic Italian regional cuisine. Thanks so much for letting me share my journey with you.